Welcome to the Embrace Her Legacy podcast, the #1 personal development classroom for millennial women, hosted by Embrace Her Legacy founder and CEO, Maria I. Melendez. Ladies, get ready to evoke your feminine confidence and be inspired to master your relationship with yourself so you can fabulously live your legacy. If you enjoy this podcast, please make sure to subscribe. Don't forget to visit us at embraceherlegacy.com, where you can support our mission by making a donation of any amount or sign up to become part of our community of volunteers and supporters, the Embrace Her Legacy Collective. Our vision is for every woman and every girl to defeat her inner saboteur, master her relationship with self, and live out her legacy unapologetically. Enjoy the podcast.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Embrace Her Legacy podcast, the #1 personal development classroom for millennial women of color. And today we have a special guest who's like family now. Like this is your second time, right, Stefanie?
This is my second time on your platform, and I'm grateful to be here. Thank you again for the invite.
All right, so if y'all know the voice, is Stefanie, the life architect, the emotional health specialist, certified life coach of the year. Like, Stefanie gathers me every day on social media.
Stop it.
Every day.
Stop it.
Every day I am gathered. I'm like, oh, she in my prayer closet. So Stefanie, say hello to the people, for those who don't know you, and a little about you and your work and what you do.
Thank you so much. Yes, as Maria said, I am Stefanie, the life architect, the builder, customizer, and designer of healthy emotional lives. I am a certified professional life coach, and I am a self-proclaimed emotional health specialist. Why can I call myself that? Because I worked on my emotions with the help of others, plus myself. I am in a space where I am able to help you, and not only based on what was working for me, but able to build, customize, and design a plan that is for you.
Well, then, damn. She said, I get your life together. That's what
I'll get it together.
I call you the boundaries expert.
I am.
Anytime I have issues with boundaries, I'm like, what would Stefanie do?
Yes.
So let's jump right into this episode, because this episode is really, I hope I don't cry, because it's near and dear to my heart.
Can I stop you right there? I hope you do cry, because if you need to cry, release the tears. It's not about saving face or hiding. If you gotta cry, cry. Your tears speak words for you when you can't.
See what I mean, y'all? See what I mean? Love her. So if I cry, I cry. You and I have mentioned this before, but the name of this episode is called Dear Mama, strengthening and healing relationships between mothers and daughters. And, you know, I said that I might cry because this is all in my prayer closet. This is all in my, this is it. This is the biggest prayer to the Lord. And I'm like, Lord, if we don't fix it. This is something that I have dealt with all almost 36 years of my life. Mm-hmm. I wanted to talk to you about it because, I started to feel, well, oftentimes growing up, I would feel alone, especially around Mother's Day, where it was like, everybody's like, my mom is everything to me, and she's the greatest and most strongest example. And I'm like, well, love her mother. Yes. But on Mother's Day, I just want to write her check so she can go and have a good time and enjoy her day, because, you know, her and I are literally she's a Pisces, I'm an Aries, so we're literally opposites, right?
Yeah.
But then I started talking, and I'll be honest enough to share that last year our issues reached a boiling point. Yeah. And I knew it was 2020, and I knew it was her own emotional issues and anxiety around COVID. And I was like, I need some help. So I started working with a therapist, which you recommended to me, and I started being open about it. And as I started talking more and more, I realized I wasn't alone. And a lot of people do have, you know, contentious relationships with their mothers. And I was like, oh, snap. I'm not
Nope.
So that's why I just wanted to talk about it on a podcast platform, and there was no one else I wanted to talk to than the life architect herself. So we're gonna jump right in, and hopefully have an open and healing discussion for a mom. Maybe this will help the relationship with her daughter, or maybe this is daughter helping relationship with her mom. You know?
Yeah, it could
So
also be. I'm sorry. It could also be a person or a being helping their relationship with their future child,
yeah,
right? It could be also helping their relationship with their niece or nephew. It could be helping the relationship with the godchild. So it's more than just mother and daughter. That's the catalyst of the conversation. But healing has a transformational aspect to it where it can transcend and set those dominoes into motion, where it can be other nurturing relationships in the parent-child realm.
amazing. I'm here for it. So
Yes.
Stephanie, we gotta be, you say transparency brings them to the yard, like you say, right? So
Yes.
I'm gonna ask you, did you ever have any difficulties in your relationship with your mom?
Of
If
course.
so, how did you go about healing from that?
The answer is absolutely yes. And the answer to the second question is not how did I go about healing it like it's past tense. How am I healing it in the present? Because to me, it's a continuous thing, right? We're getting to know each other as I am an adult to her. I will always be her baby in her head.
Yep.
But sometimes when parents look at you as their baby in their head, they recoil the idea of seeing you as an adult. And it's really, really hard. Listen to me clearly, everyone listening. It is really, really hard for a parent to go from a CEO to a consultant in their child's life.
Ooh. We're not even 7 minutes in. You already started. Can you elaborate? I know what you mean, but for somebody else, can you elaborate on what does that mean?
Yes, this means that, okay, so a typical CEO role in a corporation. They are the head, they are the ones who say what goes, they hire, they fire, they create the policies and procedures for their employees to follow. So your parent is essentially your CEO, right? You're a child, you're a baby, you know nothing. They are the person, the parents, father and mother. But in this case, we're talking about mother. She is the person who guides you in this world, especially when it comes to emotional support, right? That's the typical traditional roles that have been given to men and women. Woman is the nurturer, the emotional support, teaches you the life skills and how to live and cook and clean and all the things you need to do as an adult. They are the CEO of their child's life. And then when the child starts to form their own opinions, the child starts to decide who they are for themselves. And that could be something from spiritually, like I don't like the religion I was raised in, or I have questions about the religion I was raised into. I want to wear what I want to wear. It can be as deep as finances and spirituality to simple as something as much as the aesthetic of who I want to be. I want to shave my head. I want to dye it purple and all that stuff. So when the child forms their own opinion and decides who they are for themselves, the downgrade automatically starts to happen from CEO to executive suite down to consultant. So I don't need you every day to make the decisions for me that you have become accustomed to for years, right? And what happens is, Maria, we don't have these conversations because we don't know to have these conversations with our parents. We just start to rebel. They start to choke hold tighter. We start to try to pull away more. And then here we go. We're at war with each other.
Yep. That sounds about right. So how can that stereotype that mom and daughter have to be close affect this relationship? And can that create some other issues? Because honestly, I'm out here thinking that something is wrong with me.
Why?
Because I'm different from the rest. Like, I'm not as close with my mother as everybody else. So you start to, because of that stereotype, now I'm like, well, what's wrong with me? Not knowing that that's perfectly fine. Yeah. That me and my mom are not like, we're cool.
We're not friends. We're not BFFs.
Right, we're not. Like, and she knows that, right? But how can that type affect us that we have to be tight with mom and daughter?
Such a great question. Stereotypes in general affect a lot of things, but pertaining to this specific situation, it can affect us in such a negative way because it's a limiting box that people are putting the relationship in. So if she's not your best friend, if she's not like your sister, if you feel like you can't tell her any and everything, if you're not sharing clothes, if she doesn't have a say so in your romantic relationships, then you must not love her and she must not love you and you guys must not be close. But as I say in my practice, I believe life, including your relationship with your parents, your siblings, and your friends, and your coworkers, are customizable. We build, we customize, and we design our healthy emotional lives. So if my idea and my mother's idea of a healthy relationship is not being best friends, and we have those boundaries in place where we tried the best friend thing, or we didn't, and it just doesn't work for us, that's not who we want to be to each other, that doesn't mean our relationship is not healthy because we don't want to do what everyone else is doing. It means that we decided not to conform to the norm and do what works for us.
Ooh, that's good. See, I like that. So what you did right there is you kind of differentiated close and healthy.
Yeah.
Because we can be close and it can still be a toxic relationship, right?
Yes, because trauma bonding is real, and trauma bonding often happens a lot between parents and children. We are
trauma bonding. Tell us what that is. Come on, Stefanie.
Riddle start.
I'm starting. The people need to know.
The bond of trauma is exactly what it says is what it is. The bond of trauma. So a lot of trauma bonding is centered around codependency. So a lot of people have children because they want to be loved unconditionally. I had you because I wanted someone to love me unconditionally. I've heard that several times,
me
right?
Too. Mm-hmm.
Heard that. I had you because no one loved me the way I was going to love you. Mm-hmm. I'm going to parent you better than my parent parented me. I want us to be like my family, whatever, insert the family name. We're not going to be like the Smiths.
Right.
Because I didn't like what the Smiths did. So a lot of those statements are codependent statements, i.e. trauma bonding. So you're building a mini me because you have unfulfilled things that you haven't met, right? Whether it's family relationships, you and your mother wasn't close, so you are determined for you and your daughter to be close, or you and your mother were extremely close, and you are going to force that on you and your daughter. This is trauma bonding. There's a need that's unmet that you're trying to force in a trauma sense onto your child. So these stereotypes have to have a root. And a lot of the times the root is trauma bonding in my personal and professional experience.
Okay, so is trauma bonding the same thing as generational trauma?
Well, it could be generational trauma if your family constantly trauma bonds. It could be. It could be, but I'm not, again, there's no blanket statements here, right? It could be. Every situation is customizable and it's different. So I'm not going to label everything trauma, generational curses and generational this, because we like to use those statements as crutches, Maria. We like to say it's generational curses, but really it's you trying to personally not undo what you're doing. You're being lazy, right? You want to call it a curse. But is it really a curse, or you just not doing better with the know better?
There you go, that part. Because it could be a generational issue, right? And then you decide to do better. Like, all right, it stops with me. You know, we gonna set these healthy boundaries. We're gonna do what we need to do. Now, Stefanie, my issue there, and I know me and my girlfriends talk about this all the time, is how do you set healthy boundaries with your mama?
Oh, you talking my language. You know I'm the boundary queen.
Yeah, girl, we gonna jump because you said, you said that everything is customizable, right? So you could build a relationship with your mother.
Yes.
Doesn't that take two to tango?
It does take two to tango. And here's the thing about boundaries, and not just with your mother, with anyone, Maria. You have to be okay with being the consequence of those boundaries not being respected. Meaning, if you set those boundaries and have healthy communicative dialogue around those boundaries with your parent, and it might need a third party. It might be where it shouldn't just be you and mom, right? Because mom is seeing her child. Mom is saying, everything I've sacrificed for you. You don't understand. You're not a mom yet. You don't get it. And even if you are a mom, you're still not like me. So you don't understand. There'll always be some comparison to you and her because she most likely is coming from a mindset of hierarchy parenting. I'm here. you're down here. So even if you make sense, I might resent you for making the sense that you're making, Maria, because how dare you? Because as my child, you're not supposed to teach me nothing.
Ooh.
Yes, let's go there. As my child, I'm supposed to be the educator, not the student. So when I am in the reverse role, I'm offended. Right? So I don't really even know how to articulate that. I don't even know that's what I'm feeling. So all I'm going to do is tell you to stay in a child's place, even though you're 30 or 40.
Yeah.
Right? So we might need a mediator. We might need a life coach, right? We might need a therapist. We might need a specialist in this area. And let's not rest on adding another family member into that. We're not going to call your auntie, right? We're not going to call Big Mama and Medea. We're not going to call Abuela. We're going to invest in help so that we can actually have a neutral, unbiased person sit here and break us down the way we need to be broken. So that's how you start with the boundary. You decide early on that if the healthy boundaries that I set will not be respected, what am I willing to do about that? Because if you don't have intentions for your boundaries, they're pointless. Because you can set them. People think setting the boundary, Maria, is the hardest part. It seems like that at first. No, maintaining the boundary.
Yes.
That's, my friend, that is where the actual work comes in. So if you're not willing to maintain the boundary and you have no intention or destination for the boundary, then I say need not set it. So you have to be clear. Am I willing to be the consequence? Meaning, am I willing to dissolve this relationship? Am I willing to have a mother on this earth that I don't speak to? Am I willing to have a daughter on this earth that I have limited capacity conversations with, right? Am I willing to do something as a consequence to my healthy boundary not being respected? That's where you start with you first. That's before you even get to a conversation. You have to decide that for you. Second, like I said, get help. If you already have conflict with your parent and you guys always end up in the same place every time you try to have a conversation, you know for a fact, if you come talking about boundaries, it's not going to work. Because if she can't hear you over Thanksgiving dinner, she's certainly not going to hear you on how you talk to her.
That's right. That's right.
You know?
So but my question is, those boundaries, right? How would I know what boundaries I need to set for me and my mom's relationship, right? Because that can be tricky too. It's like, all right, what my therapist did with me, she was like, all right, what's the lines that, okay, you absolutely cannot cross? And then, like you said, what would be what would be the consequence of that?
Yes,
and there were certain things that I was just like, all right, I know my mother's always going to do this, so I'm just going to tolerate that because that's just who she is. But what advice would you give to someone who's trying to like even figure out what those boundaries are? Because it's such a wounded relationship, she probably doesn't even know where to start.
I completely agree. Again, this mostly starts with you, the person who wants to set the boundaries, whether you're the mom or the daughter, whatever position you're in. This is really not about the other person. This is really about you saying, I want to be treated differently and better, right? So your therapist is 100% spot on. Like, what is it? Define what it is that you feel is the boundary crossing. What is the disrespect? And what would you like to happen with the disrespect? Do you want it to stop completely? Do you need it to be toned down? What is it that you want? Because a lot of people will just be like, I don't like the way you talk to me. Okay, but give me clarity. Let's get clear and concise. Step one, let's get clear. What is it that we want? And then what is it that we don't want, right? And then what is the destination for both of them? This work is really inner work that really is not about the other person. And many people think it's like, yeah, I'm gonna get my list together and I'm gonna go shut that person down. No, it's you getting clear and concise on the list, so that you're not just babbling hurt and pain and that trauma speak over and over again. Because the arguments that you and mom has been having, that is trauma speak. The same broken record arguments. You don't understand. You don't do this. I'm not my father. You say this. You say that. You didn't let me love my father. You always talk to me crazy. You my child. Stay in the child's place. All of those things. That's the broken record. The greatest hits of mom and daughter going over and over. So the goal is to avoid the greatest hits and get clear and concise. That is the number one thing, Maria, that I believe people need to do. Second, know your limits. Like you said, know who you're dealing with. Not saying that people can't change, but let's be real about people who are, I would like to say seasoned. I don't want to call them old, seasoned people. Some people, if you're 70 and you're 60, a lot of people are stuck in their way.
Right.
And you coming with this new aged healing that the world is on, as I said earlier, is offensive to a lot of people who have lived their lives mostly already. They don't want to change. I have been this way for 60 years, girl. I raised you this way and you still just fine or okay. Even with the trauma that you have, you're still doing very well. Look at you, Maria. You out here thriving, teaching children. You out here running businesses. So in their minds, it's like, what do you have to complain about when you're still doing so well? So you have to know your limits. Is this a realistic boundary goal that you have? Is this really something that is going to possibly take place? Or is this something that's just on a wish list? Right? I know who my mother is, or I have an idea of who my mother is. I have an idea of who my daughter is. But what is the limitation that they have shown me with their POP? And POP means pattern of practice. What POP, what pop have they shown me over and over again that is a limitation for them? So when I talk to my mom, we might argue about this, but when I talk to her about that, that's when she hits the roof, right? So let's start to know the limits. Like, yeah, she gets mad about this, but this one she gets livid. Let me start to make a list here. Which do I think is a realistic limit for her? Because what we don't understand is some of the boundaries we want to set are triggering for our parents, because the boundary you want to set is trauma for them, possibly from their childhood. So if you want to say something like, the way you talk to me makes me feel violated, they learned that somewhere. And it could be a reminder of how they were spoken to.
Right.
When they were younger. So you don't know why they do what they do, and you don't know how they're going to react, but all you can do is go back to the POP to sit there and assess that.
Wow.
If any of that makes sense to you.
If y'all don't go and book Stefanie for at least 3 sessions, like, y'all are wilding. Girl.
Thank you.
So there was something you said at the beginning that struck out, and it was one of my questions. In raising our daughters, should we embrace or stray away from being the mother for my child that my mom wasn't for me? Because I get that. I will honestly say I love my mom, but she taught me some things not to do. So I'm like,
yes,
I'm going to do this different. But then I'm like, you know, like you said, every relationship is customizable. So can this be harmful, or can it be helpful to take or to embrace or stray away from that idea?
I think it's harmful because it's a sentence and a statement from a place of lack.
Okay, elaborate.
So if I'm saying I'm going to raise my child differently from the way I raised my mom, I'm not even focusing on the beautiful ways I can learn to raise my child that have nothing to do with my mother and my trauma and my pain. It's coming from a place of lack, meaning I didn't get this, so I'm going to make sure I give my child that. And then you end up overcompensating. So I didn't get the sneakers and the Jordans and stuff that I wanted. I always felt like I was a bum in comparison to, you know, my friends in school. And I got teased for holes in my sneakers, so to speak, or holes in my jeans. Now I give my kids any and everything with no boundaries on spending. Do you see what I'm saying?
Okay.
So if you have that mindset, you are speaking from a place of lack. I didn't have that, so I'm going to raise my kid with this lack mindset and overcompensate.
Right.
Way too much. Instead of saying, and changing the narrative, I'm going to be the best mother I can be. And how do I become her? I am going to make sure I do my inner work so that when my child comes, they're not just hosted in my body, right? I host them and nurture them in my body. But when I give birth to them, I'm also going to host and nurture them in a way that's going to blow even my mind. I'm not speaking about what I didn't have. I'm not even going to put that into my motherhood statements of affirmations. Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to focus on what I could be and give this human a fighting chance for us to nurture our own customizable relationship and not constantly bring the baggage of what I didn't receive from my mother into our mother-daughter relationship.
That's beautiful. Oh my God. You just made my ovaries jump, sis.
Not the ovary jump.
Yeah, they just jumped. It was like, we ready. But you know, in that same token, I would say, like, it is okay to kind of learn from your parents' mistakes, though, right? Like,
you can learn, but you can't harbor. There's a difference. I didn't like being violated. I didn't like being spoken down to, or most people, I didn't like being beat. You know, there's a lot of stuff that carries over for us trauma-wise that happened to us as children. And we're allowed to say, I don't want to do that. But again, we go back to the broken record. We don't realize that we constantly repeat that out loud over and over and over again. And if we believe, Maria, that our words hold power and words mean things, if I'm constantly talking about the lack in my parenthood, in my childhood, what do you think I'm going to bring? I'm so scared to duplicate it. That's all I bring up, if that makes sense. I'm not going to duplicate this. We're not going to be my mother. I'm not going to have it. That's all you're speaking into existence.
Yes.
That's all you're talking about. So when those thoughts come up, fine, acknowledge them. I hear you thoughts. I hear you trauma thoughts. I hear you, but you don't have the right to stay here and govern my current parenting. You don't have permission to tell me that that's what I'm going to be, because I'm doing my work. I'm in therapy before I'm a mother. You're in therapy, Maria.
Amen. Yeah.
You're doing your work now. So in therapy, you can get those kinks out, so to speak, so that you don't parent and lead with that trauma, lead with that space of lack, lead with that hole that you're having the baby to fill. That's the goal, not to put this child in a position to be your therapist without them knowing it, being your healer without them knowing it. And a lot of us, unfortunately, have been put into positions to be our parents' everything because they had nothing.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's talk about dad, because dad got something to do with this. In my situation, I know that to be true. Yeah. And I know that to be true in a lot of other daughters, right? Can competition over dad's attention or the daughter being seen as a threat to mom or mom's relationship with dad be a real thing?
Absolutely. Of course, it could be a real thing. Let me tell you, and if that's the case, I believe that has a lot to do with the father. Right? Because there are a lot of houses that are out of order. So I believe the hierarchy of a household is God, the marriage and the relationship, and then the child.
Amen.
Okay? A lot of people are out of order and wonder why there's jealousy and divide. You are supposed to love your wife, right? And you're supposed to have the unit, even if you're not married, because marriage is not for everyone. But you are supposed to be raising that child as a unit. That unit is what the child sees and develops with. So if that unit is unstable, if that unit is broken, that child will be unstable and that child will be broken. So you can spoil and love your daughter as you should, because your daughter's relationship with you as her father is her first relationship with men.
Right.
She should be in love with you. You should be in love with her. Y'all should be on father-daughter dates. You should be showing her chivalry. You should be showing her how to change a tire as well, to be self-sufficient. You should be loving on her, but never, ever in a way where your wife feel like your daughter replaced her. And a lot of guys do that and don't realize that, right? And then the woman, instead of getting mad at the man, she then resents her daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, which is a whole inappropriate thing, but we have to look at how that started and why. Also, sometimes it's not that the guy is not really making sure that both of his the women in his house or the girls in his house are equally loved. Sometimes it's the woman, she already had daddy issues and she had men issues. So she finally found her man and she don't want to share him. If that's the case, sis, then don't have a baby.
Oh,
okay. Mic drop.
My mouth is just like, I don't have nothing else to say.
Mic drop. Okay, let's call some things, as Iyanla would say. Like, we have to really start understanding that a lot of the mother-daughter relationships that are in trouble started, not saying carried, because when we get older, we have to take accountability and responsibility. But a lot of them started and were rooted in the jealousy of the child, because it took the attention away temporarily from what she thought was all going to be hers with her man.
Girl, so all right, let's go deeper here, because this is an issue. You know, I've seen it. Like I said,
so have I.
know it to be true. What advice do you give to a mom? Baby's already here, so she can't. Baby's here, so she's experiencing that resentment to her daughter because she felt like her daughter replaced.
Yes.
What advice do you give to her? And then what advice do you give to the man to change his ways and to heal?
First, always, again, like I said, this is my broken record, Maria. Do that inner work. Let's address it. I am jealous of my daughter. That happens a lot. I am jealous of my daughter. I'm not saying say it to the child, right? You have these conversations with your mate. And if you can't have these conversations with your mate, then you should not be with them in the first place. But we also have to realize, again, that we have to take accountability. Even if you're writing it in your journal, saying it in your shower, saying it to yourself, in your prayers. I am jealous of the relationship with my child and her father. I am feeling abandoned in this household. I'm feeling alone in this household. Or even if you don't know how to articulate it, you say it out loud where it's clear that you don't know what you're saying, meaning, I don't know what I'm feeling, but I don't feel good. I don't know what I'm feeling. I can't articulate it. I can't put my finger on it, but there's something that doesn't settle in my spirit right when I see them together. I'm feeling like I'm not enough for this household and this family. Acknowledge what you're feeling somehow, some way. Now, after you acknowledge it, like I said, there are many things we try to heal and fix ourselves, Maria, where we need a third party.
Amen.
We need coaching. We need therapy. We need counseling. And we want to sit there and try to fix everything ourselves or with the homegirl and homeboy network. Well, I called my friends. We went to about it, right? Or we had a girls retreat about it. Or, I just prayed about it. And last time I told you when I was here, prayer is fantastic. And yes, it changes things, but you're not cheating on God if you go to coaching and therapy.
Hallelujah.
You're not cheating on the Lord. You're not having an affair. Therapy is not a mistress. Life coaching is not a mistress. It's not a concubine. It's okay. It's not a home wrecker. It's actually a home healer. So you need to start accessing the help that's out there for you, because if you do not, let me tell you, your daughter feels it, whether you say it or not. She sees it, whether you purposely show her or not. She can feel the resentment, the dislike, the disdain. You start to pick her apart. She can do nothing right. Everything she shows you is not enough. She brings a B home. You say, where's the A? She looks nice in her dress. You tell her she looks like a slut. Let's go there, okay? She wants to love someone else. You tell them she's not good enough for them or they'll never be good enough for her. You don't even realize that your goal every day is to tear her down. Why? Because you feel torn down and you're not expressing it.
Stefanie.
I mean,
I'm like, let's call Iyanla. Let's just have a show, because this is a whole show. This is not just one show right now. This is a series, okay?
Girl.
Oh, God.
And you asked about the man. So initially I said, I feel like if the man is in the household, this is hard to do. Again, customizable. If this is a 2-parent household, this is hard to do because we're not together every day, right? So let's address the man that's in the house, who is the king of the castle, quote unquote. If you are the king, then you need to lead. If your house is in division and you are the king and you are there, you are not doing your royal duty. If you notice that there is an issue between your daughter and your wife or your girlfriend or whatever you want to call her, your partner, you need to address it, even if she cannot articulate it yet. You should not have to wait for the breakdown of your daughter and the breakdown of your partner or your wife for you to address something. Leadership addresses. Leadership addresses swiftly. Leadership doesn't wait for a mountain to become, is it Mountain Molehill or Molehill Mountain? You know what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Leadership does not wait for an avalanche. It sees a snowball being thrown and it's like, hey, what's going on here? So I would recommend that he do his very best to address it. And if he cannot, here goes my broken record again, get outside help. Get outside help and let your family know that you're taking leadership. And leadership doesn't mean that I have to fix it. Leadership means that I am okay with saying I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to heal it. I don't know how to pain management, but I acknowledge it and I sought out and invested in someone who does, because what I won't have is the woman that I love and the child that I created at odds over thinking that I love one more or I'm not doing what I need to do to make sure that they both feel nurtured in this relationship. And if the therapist, the counselor, or the life coach brings to my attention as the head of this household that I am doing something that I could be doing better, then I will take action and address it. Period.
And that's on period.
And that's on period.
Now, Stefanie, this is great if a man recognizes the issue. Now, what happens if sometimes I love my Black men and all men, period. But sometimes they're not the brightest stars in the skies.
Not the brightest, girl. No, you did.
Yes, I did. That's not that, because sometimes as a woman, you can explain it and you can say, hey, this is how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
I'm jealous. And he may be like, what you talking about? Oh, what he may hear is, how dare you be jealous of my daughter? I'm doing everything in my power to make sure that I'm loving my daughter. Like other women would love this. He's not hearing her pain.
Yes.
What advice do you give to a woman who's dealing with that?
Great point, because it's unfair to assume that just because he's the leader of your household, he's going to always recognize everything. He's human and he's allowed to have blind spots, right? So that's a great point. Thank you for sharing that. If she is communicating her needs effectively, I said effectively because just because she's communicating does not mean it's effective, Maria. So her yelling and screaming or crying and having a breakdown every 2 seconds does not mean that he can hear her clearly, right? Especially if she's emotionally manipulative, like many women are, and break down for every reason. You see what I'm saying? He can't tell the difference of if this is over you not liking the pizza delivery guy or this is really an issue. Do you feel me?
Damn, Stefanie, we going in. Why are you in everybody's closet?
Listen, we got to tell the truth, Maria. As a woman, I know what I'm talking about because I used to be emotionally manipulative. And even now in my marriage, if I start to cry, because I'm a crier, I feel like at the beginning, I told you, if you feel, let it out. I am clear that I was raised in a situation where if you heard happy wife, happy life, that is a manipulative situation. That means that if the woman of the house is not happy, no one is allowed to be happy. That is not okay. Right? So I grew up thinking that that's okay. And what that told me is anytime I cry, I get my way. Anytime I yell and scream, I get my way. Anytime I have an issue, I get my way. So that's what I mean. He might not know that what you're conveying is serious because you convey it this way for everything. Everything. You break down or you yell or you scream or you shut down over the toilet seat. You do it over everything, so he doesn't know how he can, gauge this. What's the metric system here of taking you seriously if you're an emotionally manipulative partner? How could he know? He has a blind spot. The blind spot could be because you over exaggerate for everything.
This is so good. Like, this is so good. Now, how does somebody stop being emotionally manipulative? Because I was like that too. I grew up in a home like that too. When Iyanla says, what did your mother teach you about men? And and essentially what she's saying is, what did she model to you?
Yes.
And one of those things that my mother modeled to me was, in order to get your way, this is what you do. If someone hurts you, my mother taught me how it's okay that if someone hurts you, to do anything to hurt them back with your words, with anything. So these are things that we grew up, seeing and watching. So how do I even stop being emotionally manipulative if that's all I know? It goes back to doing the work.
What you want me to say, Maria? It goes back to doing the work, but before you get to the work, you have to, again, it's acknowledgement, ownership, acceptance. Am I emotionally manipulative? What is that? What is manipulative? What is emotional? Right? Let's research the separate words and then put the phrase together. Am I doing this? How does it benefit me? Do I want to stop doing this? Because all of the coaching, Maria, all of the therapy, all of the counseling, all of the podcast listening, all of the following the Life Architect and double tapping and, ooh, she gave me my life on this IGTV matters not if you don't want to change. It really doesn't matter. So ask yourself, is this something I'm really willing to do something about? And do something, meaning not the lip service and saying, hey, I notice it. Doing something and taking action, investing in the help to do so. You're in therapy. You know that layer peeling is real.
Yeah.
Girl, some sessions are like, I be weeping the whole time. And I tell her, like, every time I get on this call with you, you got me looking like a basket case because I can't even.
Sometimes I get off a call and I just felt like I ran 16 laps. I'm like, I'm tired.
Yes, and we'll speak about aftercare because that's a whole nother issue because people don't understand that after therapy, after coaching, you are sometimes so drained that you have to have an aftercare policy, a procedure in place to nurture the wound.
I never knew that.
Well, this is why you coach with me, because I can teach you some things.
That.
Yes,
I am exhausted sometimes after a session. Like
You run an emotional marathon. That's why.
Yes.
Or it's an emotional sprint, or you have an emotional workout session. It's no different than the gym. When you got a good trainer and they sweat and they work you out, you come home, you take that hot shower and you lay down. You're doing that mentally. That's all you have to just understand that it's a transferable workout. That's all. It goes from the body to the emotional and mental state. So if you feel exhausted after it, it makes sense because you're doing the work. And the work requires you to go nurture yourself the same way you would after a sweaty workout at the gym.
Look at that. Amazing.
Set up something, whether you're into aromatherapy, whether you're into music, whether you're into sage lighting and silence, whether you're into dancing around the living room. Set up an aftercare, maybe more than one too, because some sessions you might feel like dancing and other sessions you might feel, like a candlelit bath.
Yeah.
Set up an aftercare. So if you know your therapy schedule, try to make sure you have nothing after that. Try not to go into work. Try to make sure these sessions are when you're able to have at least 30 minutes afterwards to decompress in your aftercare way.
Wow. Well then, all right. Stefanie over here giving us all the jewels. Okay, girl. So let's keep talking about the home, right? And the dynamics of what the home can look like. So lack of affirmation, highly critical words and behavior can be detrimental to a girl's self-esteem.
Yeah.
I am living proof of that. What advice would you give to a mom who uses these methods to make her daughter stronger or better?
Great question. What's your definition of strong, Mom? Let's go there. What's your definition of better, Mom? And why do you think that she needs to be stronger than what she already is or better than what she already is? I would have to ask Mom a lot of questions. And as you know, that's what happens a lot in self-healing. Self-healing. Well, it is self-healing because you're a part of it. But that's what happens a lot in healing and in pain management with your therapist and your coaching. You really think that we're doing the work. You're really doing the work. We're just asking you questions. We're guiding you to the place of this. So that's what I would do with the mom. What is it that means better to you? Why is it that this is better to you? Do you mean more like you? Is that your definition of better? Do you mean ready for the world that has been unkind to you? Is that your definition of better? Does her vulnerability make you mad because you weren't allowed to be vulnerable at her age? Is that what you mean by better? Right? So it's really like asking the right questions to ask, to understand why the pressure to be a certain way is put on the child. Because most of the time, again, it's trauma speak and it is trauma bonding. And it is, I'm raising you based on only the knowledge that I have. I'm raising you like I was raised, or I think I'm raising you better than I was raised. So what are you complaining about? A lot of times parents do comparison parenting. So it's like, at least you didn't get beat with a switch and your skin wasn't busted open. I just slapped you in your face. You're lucky. You see what I'm saying? At least I'm still here. My mother left me by now, right? At least you can come talk to me. Well, if you think arguing is talking, Mom, okay. I wasn't even allowed to talk. The minute I said, hey, Mom, I got smacked in the mouth. So if I let you argue back with me, what are you complaining about? So a lot of it is comparison. And you sit there and you look at your daughter and you're just like, well, I didn't get to dress like that when I was younger. I didn't get to make the money you make when I was younger. I didn't get to talk back. Women didn't speak. They were spoken to when I was younger. I didn't get to be the boss. I was always the assistant or the maid or the help. I look at you and I resent you. So when I say you can be better, when I say you can be stronger, is it really me picking you apart because who you are is not me or who I want you to be based on my stuff? I would be asking all of these questions so that we can start the conversation and make Mom realize that a lot of the stuff she's complaining with about her daughter is really her stuff.
Whew, girl, amazing. So what are other ways to build, or what are healthy ways to build self-esteem in our daughters?
Let your daughters be who they are. Ask them who they are. Invite who they are into your space. Stop trying to change who they are. Stop trying to make them feel like the world is against them. There is tough things ahead because that's life, as you know. Yeah. There is racism, sexism, oppression in many ways. There is things that girls can't even imagine, on the horizon. But guess what? Life is still here. Beauty is still here. Abundance is still here in spite of all the danger. And I would recommend you build confidence by not instilling fear in your children because you're raising them with your fear. Like release a lot of that. Yes, you can set them up for, safety. Sure, you can let them know, hey, this is a cold, cold world at times, right? But telling them it's a cold world and removing your emotion, removing your transparency, removing your vulnerability, making them feel like you're a drill sergeant or being overly affectionate, trying to not be their mother, but only trying to be their friend because you want to be liked because no one liked you. Your mother didn't like you. Now that's my sister. She's my BFF and she's craving for some discipline because it can go the other way, Maria. It doesn't have to be that you're breaking them down confidence wise because you're tough or mean or jealous. It could be you love them so much, you actually like who they are so much that you wish that she was the sister you never had. You wish that she was the BFF you never had, and you're treating your daughter as such. And there is no fine line to, is this my mom or is this my girlfriend? So it can go either way, but building confidence to me is allowing the confidence they internally automatically have to bloom without picking it apart, and then seeing where you can build upon the confidence they already have versus tearing what they have down and then putting what you want in that pot.
Amazing. This is great stuff. I feel like I'm in therapy now.
Stop it.
I do. I'm like, well, then let me just send you an offering, sis. Now,
and I will receive. My Cash App is Stefanie LA. Okay.
All right, sis. I'm about to send you an offering. So, question: what does being a good mom look like, and is that even a realistic standard?
Great. You're asking great questions, and I keep repeating the same answers. A good mom is how you define a good mom, right? What I define as a good mom might not work for you. Culturally, we have different definitions of things. Spiritually, we have different definition of things. Financially, we have different definition of things. So to me, a good mom is a mom who helps their child develop into the person that they were aligned and written to be. That's it. And when you look at the definition of a mother, it's always tied to birth, like carrying a child, which I think is a limiting definition of a mother, because there are many mothers out here who did not carry physically their children. There are a lot of great foster mothers, stepmothers, aunties, medias, abuelas, titis. There's a lot of amazing women who stepped into the motherhood role. So when you say what's good, that's why I say it's customizable by the definition, because some people would think that good has to start with you had to carry it first.
Ooh, good, yeah.
No, you don't have to be a caring mother to understand the role of motherhood. Okay, so when you look at Oprah Winfrey, when you're like, she's never had any babies, she's like, I have 100 million babies.
Yes.
Right? Because that nurturing gene, that nurturing spirit that she has said, I don't want to carry it by myself, because what people don't understand about women who choose not to be mothers, such as myself, I chose not to limit myself to one or two people because I knew I had more to give to thousands and probably millions, right? So motherhood is not being a good mother because I carried it. Motherhood is being a good mother because I nurtured it. And however we define nurturing in our mother-daughter relationship, to me, that's how you define a good mother.
This is beautiful. This is so beautiful. So let's talk about mommy shaming since we're talking about good mother.
Yes.
It's a real thing, honey.
It's a problem.
It's such a problem. So how could mommy shaming or personal insecurities around parenthood affect the mom's relationship with her daughter?
Girl, so much so. It can affect it so much so. First of all, shame makes you small. Ooh. What I mean by that is shame shrinks you down. Yes. It makes you run and hide. And when you shrink and you're small around people, everybody looks so big and so tall. Everybody else feels like a giant. And people who shame mothers, especially other mothers who shame mothers, they have the need to be the Goliath. They want to be the big giant in the room. They want to be the person who takes up the most space in the room, but yet they're not giving anything to the room. So when someone is shaming you for your motherhood, skills or lack of, you need to understand that it has nothing about you. That's about that person who is shaming you. They have a need to be seen. They have an unmet need to be the biggest, loudest person in the room. And it affects people raising their children, unfortunately, in such a disgusting way. Because if I go to this PTA group and I go to this mom group, and everyone's telling me that, you know, my instant chocolate chip cookies are trash because I didn't sit there for 2 hours and bake them from scratch. I could really go home and tear my children apart for even having the nerve to ask me to participate in this bake sale.
Yep.
Right? And it has nothing to do with the children.
Yep.
Right? I'm bringing that shame transfer home. That trauma is now coming home. And now, mommy's upset. Happy wife, happy life. Everybody's on thin ice for the rest of the night, maybe the rest of the weekend or the whole week. You never know how the emotional manipulator will carry that out. So shame is something, yes, that makes you small, but it also is something that transfers. It's also a virus that goes around because you're looking for a place to dump that shame and release that on. And most likely you're going to give it to the children because they're the reason that you're being shamed in the first place.
Oh my God, Breanne Brown talks about this too. I think she calls them shame storms or something.
Ooh, I love me some Breanne.
Yes. And she says that when you're experiencing that, you're not fit for like human consumption. So she says, don't call the phone, don't talk to nobody because you want to dispose of that on somebody else. Yes. So you start spiraling out of control. So that's the thing I've noticed is that when you are experiencing some shame moments, because they're real, it's a kind of like disengage and walk away and come back.
And be honest about the disengagement because, like I said, shame makes you small. So when you're small, you want to dump that so that you can go back to your normal size again, right? I want to release that. I want to feel my normal size. I want to feel my normal self, and I need to put that on somebody.
Yeah.
So Breanne is 100% right, but let's be real, Maria. In a lot of cases, people can't just detach because I'm the mom. I have to go home to these kids, but what you can do is be honest with your children. What you can do is have a healthy communicative relationship with them and say, hey, sit them down when you come home. Mommy had a really rough day. And by rough, I mean, I experienced something where someone made me feel bad about how I parent in this way or something I do as a mother. And you don't even have to elaborate. You don't have to say it's about the bake sale or whatever, because sometimes we share too much information with our kids. But what you can do is share your emotions and your feelings and give them a tidbit. I felt shame today. Do you know what shame is? Let's have a shame conversation. Mommy felt shame today and mommy doesn't feel good. That shame makes me feel small. Oh, I'm getting emotional. That shame makes me feel like I'm inadequate. I'm not enough. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to have a quiet night because mommy needs her space. So your dinner's here, your this is here, and I've raised you to be self-sufficient enough that you can hang for a few hours without mommy. Mommy needs her bath tonight. For mommy to be emotionally healthy, she needs her bath. And you know what? This gave mommy a great idea. We're going to start checking in with our highs and our lows for the day of the week or the week. And we're going to tell each other what our highs was, what made us feel good. And then we're going to say what our lows were that made us feel bad. And then we're going to have a solution-driven conversation about the aftercare about the lows. What would you like to happen when you feel low, when you come in? What would you like mommy, daddy, and your brothers and sisters to do when you're experiencing a low? Let's write that on the low board and say, Maria's low today. Maria likes a candle bath. Maria likes her R&B. Today is candle bath and R&B night for Maria. We're going to set that up for you, sis. Go ahead. That's how you build a healthy relationship with your children. You build transparency, you build solutions, and you include them in the solution suggestion.
My ovaries they are partying. They are shimmying.
They two-stepping?
They are two-stepping, okay? They are partying because you just like, I'm getting emotional because
Let it go. Because what aftercare is a reward system. We're telling our children we're not shaming them for the shame that we feel about shame, right? We're telling them, hey, I felt something. Have you ever felt this? Do you go to school and feel this? Not even school. Be brave enough to say, has mommy made you feel like this?
Ooh.
Has your sister made you feel like this? Grandma, anybody? Uncle Jimmy, anybody ever made you feel like that? Now that I'm aware, I'll make sure I take care of it. We don't have shame around shame in this house. We actually bring it to the table. We bring it to the yard, as I like to say.
Yes.
We bring that shame to the yard and we tell it doesn't have a place here. We acknowledge it and we release it. We have that aftercare in place so that shame doesn't live here. It visited, but it didn't live here and it's gonna go. And that's it. And we build confidence together as a family, as a unit, because the mom came in, the dad came in with with the transparency and the option to tag in on how to be solution driven with the aftercare for the shame.
Miss Stefanie, the life architect, you are out here healing souls, okay, with these words.
Thank you. I attest this right now to, I was getting emotional because I'm thinking about my mother and my relationship. And I attest this to doing the work on my own and her doing her work on her own, and then us trying to do work together. And it's not easy, but easy doesn't mean that everything is, right. People are like, oh, it's easy, so it's automatically right. No, just
Right.
because it's hard doesn't mean that it's impossible, and doesn't mean that it's wrong because it was hard, right? Just like on the contrary, like I said, just because it's easy doesn't mean it was right, right? So I'm okay with the hard work as long as I know that the hard work is actually doing something. I see the change in my mom. I see the change in myself. I see the change in us individually, and I see the change in us collectively as a unit. And there are times we stumble, and that's okay, because we're working on the aftercare for the stumbling. We don't have to go long periods of time anymore where it's just dead silence, radio silence, and we're waiting for the other person to make the first move. Because if you make the first move and pick up the phone, that means you're the chump. You're the one who gave in. You know what? At this point, I don't need to be right. I'm happy to give in. Because after the year we had, Maria, you could die at any time, mommy, just by breathing someone else's air.
Yeah.
It's not worth it to me for me never to see you again. And the last time I spoke to you was 2 months ago, because we had a disagreement. And I just said, well, she better call me first, because if she don't call me, we not speaking. Was the disagreement really worth that? Or is that my ego? Which one is it?
Girl,
I'm working. I'm working. I'm not perfect. I'm working.
this is good. This is real good. Gosh, this is so good. So let's talk about apologizing since we're on this topic. How can we normalize apologizing to our daughters and us as well apologizing to our parent or to our mom?
We have to know the power of apology. And we have to know that saying my bad and I apologize is not actually saying I'm sorry, right?
On it.
You know how we do, Maria. We do webinars and we do teaching and classes that I'm actually thinking of. I have a Patreon subscription group, and we have monthly video calls, group video calls. And in one of the calls, I think it was 2 months ago, we had the apology language and just the breakdown of the 4 different apology languages. As you know, just like love languages, there are apologies.
Do you know yours?
I do know mine. I need accountability, right?
I need restitution.
But I was just about to say, I'm a hybrid.
Oh, okay.
I need, and just like love languages, I don't believe you have to just be one. And that's another misconception that people think. Like, well, you said your love language was this. It's like, well, that was that for that. I also need affirmations too, in addition to this. So I'm a hybrid with the apology because I need accountability. But if you take accountability without restitution, then it's just lip service.
Oh, okay.
See what I'm saying? So I need you to acknowledge that you understand, because a lot of people will say sorry and not know what they're saying sorry about. They're saying sorry because they want to receive the benefits that you took from them back, right? The consequence that we talked about, they say sorry just because I want to go back to the way it was because I'm uncomfortable. They're not really in repentance mode. Right? They want the benefit of you back. I want to go back to brunch. I want the sex back. I want the this back. I want my friend back. I want my coworker to do the work again that I'm not doing because I'm a slacker back. That's why people say I'm sorry most of the time. So we had the call about apology language, and it was an eye-opener for a lot of people who didn't even know they had an apology language. Of course, I sent that they had to take the free test online before the call, and then we had a discussion about it. So I would recommend anyone who wants to work on apologizing to their child or their mother, find out what you and your mother's apology language is first, because it makes no sense to apologize to her with accountability if she's only restitution.
Right.
It makes no sense to apologize to her, just with remorse when she's just like, I know you're sorry, you should be, but what you gonna do about it, right? This is important because we're talking, but we're not actually communicating. So if you know how your mother receives apologies and you know how your daughter receives apologies, that's more than half the battle. You don't have to figure that out. So, hey, send your mom or your daughter an email. Hey, mom, there's this quick, great quiz that I learned through my life coach or through this amazing podcast with the host named Maria. And they talked about an apology language, and I Googled it and I took the test, and this is my apology language. And I was curious to know what's yours, because I want to know how to address you appropriately when I wrong you, when I hurt you. You start that way, you sandwich it. Sandwich technique is, it's a compliment. The heavy stuff is in the middle. Then you close with another compliment on a high note, right? So it's high note, heavy stuff, high note. So, hey, mom, been thinking about you. That is a high note, because a lot of parents feel we don't think about them. We don't check on them enough. We don't call them. We only call them when we need something. So start on a high note. I've been thinking about you and our relationship and how it's really important to me. The high note. Start that way. And then you put the heavy stuff in the middle. It's about apologies. And then you close with another high note. I'm looking forward to see how this can help us heal. Period. Right? You do that and you send that in a text and you send that in an email and you see where it goes. There's no guarantees here, but you tried. All we can do, Maria, is try our best. Be the best we can be. Right? This is our inner work. We did what we were supposed to do. If the other person's not in the receiving position of that, that's between them and God, not them and us. So that's where I would start. And again, knowing the difference, I think I do want to do a webinar and it makes some slides and do it, because the apology call went so well that I feel like it needs to be brought to the masses. In addition to the apology call, there has to be acknowledgement that saying, again, my bad and I apologize is not actually saying I'm sorry. So I'll give you an example. When someone passes away, what do people say?
I'm sorry for your loss.
Have you ever heard my bad for your loss? Have you ever heard I apologize for your loss?
No.
No. Why? Because the actual sincere apology is I'm sorry. When you say I apologize, you're not saying I'm sorry. You're saying what I'm supposed to do. I apologize, Maria. No, I'm sorry. Me saying I apologize is basically saying, well, I should be saying sorry, if that makes sense. If it doesn't, I'll break it down more in my webinar, and I hope that you pay the fee and join us. Okay.
I'm joining. I'm like, girl, I'm already on your email list.
So you good. So that's important. Sometimes we don't get it. It's like I said, sorry, damn. It's similar to one of my favorite Martin episodes when he went to propose to Gina. He's like, I'll marry you, Gina. Damn.
Yeah.
Damn. That's what I apologize and my bad is. We turn, things that are quick. We're in the microwave generation. Everything is quick, 140 characters, a quick 30 seconds, 15 seconds reel. And we turn our apologies into that as well. 15-second, my bad. Get over it. Like, damn, Gina, right? 15-second, like, I apologize. What else do you want me to say? I want you to say, I'm sorry for the loss and your trust in me. That's what I want you to say. I want you to give condolences for the relationship that once was before you broke the trust that's not here anymore. That's what I want you to say. I'm sorry for the loss of your respect. I'm sorry for the loss of your trust. I'm sorry for the violation and the hurt and the pain I caused you. It's I'm sorry for your loss, not I apologize for your loss, not my bad for your loss. So when you think of that, well, why isn't I apologize enough? Why isn't my bad enough? Just think simply when you give condolences. I am sorry for your loss. That is how you know how you are supposed to apologize.
This is incredible stuff. Now, as you were talking, I thought of something, because a lot of young women listen to the podcast, and a lot of our audience, period. There's a cultural difference between growing up as an American, child in the 80s, 90s, and now 2000s. And then you have parents who come from different cultural backgrounds where this type of stuff is not even a part of their language.
Absolutely.
Like, how do I even explain to my mama about an apology language? She is not checking for that. So what advice do you give to somebody where, cultural differences play a major role, and, the friction in the relationship between mom and daughter?
I would encourage them to research the culture that the parent abides to, that the parent is married to. So say, for instance, you are Jamaican American, but your parents are like Jamaican, right? Like they subscribe to that Yadman life, right? I would advise you to find an equivalent in their cultural language. It's just about understanding. So if it's about respecting you, Fine. I don't care if it's a Bob Marley song. I don't care if it's a story they told you in the past. I don't care if it's something culturally that you've heard as a child or haven't. You might have to do your research, right? You might have to do research to say, okay, I know my mom used to love this show. This is a show that they only showed in Jamaica. She always talked about it when she was younger. Let me see, the Jamaican version of Good Times. Let me see if there's an episode that equates to what I'm talking about. You see what I'm saying? Because we're talking but not communicating. We think communication is just spitting out words. No, I can communicate with you by sending you a song that says everything I've been feeling. And I know you'll listen to it. Why? Because you know that their learning style, they're an auditory learner. They listen in rhythm. They listen in flow. That's how they understand. So you have to take it outside of the normal box of, I said what I said. I told her. No, if my mom is literally married to her culture and she only processes in this way, let me find something cultural to have it as a reference to what I'm trying to say. You can start there. Will it work? I don't know. But it's an option because you got to learn your parents too. We put so much onus on them to figure us out as adults, but we sit there and just be like, I know you how I know you. Do you really know your mom though? Do you really know what makes her tick? All you know is the part of her who hurt you. That's the part that stands out. The part of her that you feel you can't communicate with. The part of her that doesn't see you. The part of her that probably you feel loathes you, that is jealous of you. But what about the part of her that wants to be seen too? What about the part of her that wants somebody to take the time to make her first too? To learn her love language, to learn her apology language, to learn her culture and how she communicates. She's a woman too. She's a being too. And she deserves the same exact attention that you want from her. She deserves it in another form as well.
This is beautiful. And to add on to that, my mother the other day was telling me her story for the first time in 36 years. Me and my mother sat on the phone and she went back to her childhood.
I love
that. And when she did, I gained such a compassion for her. I was like, you are nothing but a hurt little girl.
You are talking to a little girl wrapped in adult flesh who raised another little girl.
Yep. And I was just like, wow, Mom. And then you said, I always knew my mom was a woman, but that was the first time. I was like,
that's the first time in 36 years.
36 years.
This is what I mean. So she might have not thought you wanted to know her in that way, right? But guess what? As I said, you're doing your work. Your work is a domino effect, and it's opening a door that after 36 years, this woman said, let me tell you something. Sit down, child. Let's sit at my feet for a second. Instead of doing what we normally do, let me tell you a little bit about myself. She feels comfortable now. Why? Because you're doing your work, Maria, and whether you realize it or not, your defenses are down. You're allowing her to not just be mom in the way you've known her to be. So she feels that and she's comfortable sharing with you now.
Wow.
She feels you're able to handle her story now.
Wow. Amazing. I didn't even see it like that. I was just like, okay, tell me your story. It just makes so much sense. And sometimes we idolize our parents like they're not human beings who went through some crazy things just like we have,
Yes, and even more so, they didn't have the advancements that we have. Like I said, our mothers, our women, the sexism that they faced, the oppression that they endured, they didn't have the technology that we have, the options that we have. They didn't have the Me Too movement. They didn't have people standing up for them. They were being raped in the office and booties grabbed and being paid pennies to run a whole company or a whole hospital, right? If they were being hired at all, if they weren't scrubbing toilets. They were being abused in their relationships and didn't have a place to go. They weren't able to go on social media and say, hey, me and my kids need a place, and then the whole world have a GoFundMe for them and they're not homeless overnight. They have been through some stuff, and then turn around and try to raise us through that stuff.
Yes.
Right? And we don't know them that way. We just know the person that they were to us, not realizing that the superhero complex we put on them, that they should have known better and figured it out. And though they did their best, it wasn't good enough for us. All of that is true, but they're still human beings that has a story. And I'm so happy that you are seeing the connection between you doing your individual mommy wound work is now trickling over to your mother, because you're becoming different. She's allowed to move differently with you.
Wow. Amazing. Well, girl, I'm looking at the time and I don't want to like take up because I know we have a time limit. And
Yes.
I am very respectful of time and
I
boundaries.
appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So my last question is kind of to wrap up your this last point is, how can we embrace accepting one another for who we are and who we're not, mothers and daughters?
Such a layered question. And I'm going to be honest because I believe this is an answer. I don't know. I don't know every mother's situation, how you can embrace your daughter and your mother. But I know for me, Maria, the embracing came from me no longer blaming my mother for what I don't have now, for what I could have had. Yeah. It came from me saying, yes, I do believe she could have done better. But could she have really? I don't know. I stopped looking at her the way it was or how I thought it would be and comparing her to other mothers, as you said, on Mother's Day, Claire Huxtable, who's my favorite mom, putting her against all of these things that weren't written for me. She was written for me. She had me. She gave birth to me. She did her very best to nurture and raise me. Did she fail sometimes? Absolutely. But I know overall that even with the failures and shortcomings, it's not my job or responsibility not to extend her mercy and grace. It's not.
Ooh, say that again, Stefanie.
It's not my job to not extend my mother mercy and grace. Now, this might not be for someone listening because every mother is different. There are some violating things that have happened to children that they cannot. Right. Let's address that really quickly. I am not talking to you if your mother damaged your soul. I'm not talking to you, right? I am not judging you. This is why I said everything is customizable. These answers to these questions, our dialogue is not a one size fits all. If you were violated beyond repair with your mother and or your father, that is your right. I am not going to tell you to sit at a Thanksgiving table with your rapist, with your molester, with your abuser in any way. I'm not going to do it. If you need the permission, Stefanie, the Life Architect is giving it to you now. You don't have to sit around your abuser just because they hold the title of DNA, right? Mm-hmm. Title of mommy and daddy. Who I'm talking to are the women or the beings on this podcast who believe there is hope for repair. That's who I'm talking to. So there are categories here. So I started my Maria, as I said, to sum it all up by really giving the mercy and grace that I believe I'm worthy of. And if I'm worthy of it, certainly the woman who did not abuse me in those heinous ways that I was referring to, certainly she's worthy of it too.
This is beautiful. Well, final question. You better tell people how they can sign up for a session with you and follow you and sign up for your Patreon and just share with everybody.
Thank you so much. Listen, I made it simple. My handle on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter is Stefanie TLA. That is STEFANIETLA. The TLA stands for The Life Architect, right? In the link in those bios, you can click in that link and it will take you to not only to my Patreon subscription, not only my free Vibe Tribe mailing list. It will take you to my calendar where you can book your 30-minute, 45-minute, or hour-long coaching conversation with me. And if you're listening right now, just because you subscribe to this podcast, if you hit me up, when is this dropping, Maria?
Probably, I want to do it more closer to Mother's Day, so let's talk about like the 3rd, 4th week of April.
Got you. You have a month from the day this podcast dropped to get one coaching conversation 50% off if you book your first. Just because you listen to this podcast. Of course, you have to reference this podcast when you hit me up so that I know this is where you got it from. But yes, you buy one coaching conversation, you will get another one with me at 50% off just because you are a listener, a fan, a believer, an investor in my girl, Maria.
Oh my God, that's beautiful. Thank you, Stefanie. I don't have nothing else to say. Like, I'm about to do an aftercare right now because I feel like I just got therapized. I'm
do that aftercare. Create more than one aftercare policy and procedure for yourself so that you're not stuck in one thing. Because what happens is, quickly before we go, Maria, we get stuck in one thing. We do the same thing over and over, not realizing that we might need different procedures for different type of aftercare needs. So do something, figure it out for you this time, and then feel free to flow and create another one. That way you have an arsenal to go to, depending on how you feel and what you need, okay?
Okay. Thank you so much, Stefanie. Like, honestly, this was probably my favorite episode ever of the podcast. Like, because it hit so close to home.
Yeah.
And this is, I love all my episodes, but this one was definitely, you spoke to 7-year-old Maria.
Oh man, you're gonna make me cry because little Stefanie,
you know, and thank you so much, Stefanie. And just thank you for for honoring your call, because you healed like my soul. I'm about to call my mama after this, like, Mama, I love you. Like, you know,
and hang up. Mama love you. Bye.
And hang up. Go to Aftercare.
Right.
Like, I feel so hopeful and so renewed and so refreshed, and just to be able to talk to you was amazing. Like, I feel like this was just incredible. So if you're listening, please not only subscribe, but share this with someone. These are the conversations that we need to have on our platforms, you know, so that we can heal and we can see the differences in our children and our great-grandchildren and our grandchildren, and we can say, look at that.
Look at that. Yes. Maria, I'm going to do something I never do. I'm going to request a part 2 of my podcast, the I Said No podcast.
Say less.
I need you. I haven't had you on yet. Now, my podcast is Patreon only now. In 2021, I converted it to a subscription-based podcast only. However, it's a great pool of people over there. And I feel like we need to do the other part of this, where it's not just the mother issue. I feel we need to talk about respecting our parents more. I think we need to dive into the child issue, the children's issue about looking at their parent as not the superhero, as we discussed. I feel like we touched on that, but that needs to be like dissected a little bit more.
Let's talk about it. You say less. I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here for you. All right, everybody. So thank you for listening. Like you said, follow Stefanie TLA. You can get her Patreon, her podcast. Sign up for all her coaching sessions, all of that. And remember, if you are listening from this podcast, she's giving you 50% off within 30 days of the release of this podcast. So make sure you remember, you mentioned this episode. Thank you so much, Stefanie. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And always be a woman who embraces her legacy. Good night.
Thank you for tuning in to the Embrace Her Legacy podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast episode, please make sure to subscribe and visit embraceherlegacy.com to make a donation or sign up to become a part of our community of volunteers and supporters, the Embrace Her Legacy Collective. Make sure you follow us at Embrace Her Legacy to get daily inspiration and join our movement. Thank you for listening, and remember, you're enough, you're worthy, and you're a phenomenal woman who embraces her legacy.